All right, good morning, everyone. Um, Today I'm joined by Wes Winham, the CEO of Woven, and Azure Gray, VP of Business Development and Client Success at ML Talent Strategies. And today we just wanted to talk about the topics that are relevant for small companies, mid-sized companies, as it relates to talent during the times that we're in right now, and specifically want to hone in a bit on talent acquisition, but also the larger, bigger picture talent and HR questions that are out there right now that small and mid-sized companies are facing. Let's transition to Wes and Azure. What's a question you have for Wes specific as to what he and Woven are doing right now?
Well, when I think about what you're doing with Woven, you have some advice that you would give relative to hiring remote developers. Why should we trust your advice, Wes? Your expertise?
That is a very reasonable question because there's a lot of folks that are new experts on remote. They've been experts all along. We just didn't know it, right? In reality, it's complicated. So I've hired a couple hundred engineers. About a quarter of those have been remote, both US remote, Canada remote, and international remote. So I've seen both sides, hired in a dozen different cities across a lot of engineering roles. So I've seen some things that work really well and some things that maybe don't. And I've tried to learn from those, a lot of my mistakes and a little bit of others' mistakes.
Wes, what are some of the benefits of remote hiring for developers? I mean, like Azure mentioned, a lot of people are hiring remotely right now and realizing how versatile they can be. What are some of those benefits?
There are two primary benefits. There's a big benefit and a small benefit. The small benefit is logistics are easier when you're doing remote interviews. Like, you can do more interviews. It's easier on the candidate. It's easier on candidates that maybe have a harder time rearranging their schedule because they're a passive candidate that's already working. You can do a lunch interview that doesn't stress them out. The logistics are a lot easier, which is generally a benefit. So that's a small benefit. That's nice. Saves a little time. You get access to candidates that maybe wouldn't be willing to go through the interview hoops if they had to take off a half day to go inside. The second benefit is the big one, and that's access to talent. Exactly as Azure said, the talent pool is much bigger. We see companies that were, I'm only hiring in my city. I'm only hiring people who are 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away. That commute really matters, to opening up the broader metro and surrounding metros. So we're seeing a trend of companies that, they really want people in the office. They're now realizing, well, actually, if we can get people in the office once a week or once a month, or maybe just at onboarding, then that actually works for us. We've proven that we can have a team that works well over video and over Slack and Microsoft Teams and whatever our tools are. So we're in Indianapolis. I'll use that as an analogy. If you just go out 2 hours away, you've got Cincinnati, you've got Columbus, you've got Louisville, maybe you've got Chicago, St. Louis is a stretch. So the access, the talent pool you're fishing in is 5, 10x bigger. And that means you can top grade. You have access to folks that you just would not have access to if you stuck in your metro. I don't care what metro you live in, you add in surrounding places, and you're going to have a much easier time finding someone who's passionate about your mission, about your technology, about exactly what's special about you. That access to talent is it's just so important. We see companies that are kind of not fully remote, but they're at least getting the surrounding cities. They hire faster. They're pickier. Some of our customers that are in that situation, they're rejecting more candidates than our other companies are even getting applied. They're rejecting these really great engineers because they're just not the right culture fit. And that's a really fortunate position to be in.
So Wes, those are some really great benefits, but what's actually more challenging about hiring remotely?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge because we rely a lot on just being people around each other in a physical space to get a read. That creates conviction. So a lot of hiring success is creating buy-in for the hiring team, for that person to support them so that when they start, everyone's excited and they get the support they need to be successful. That conviction is like it's the X factor of hiring. We talk about we're interviewing people, but maybe just as much we're getting our team excited about these people. And if we're not deliberate about recreating that, it's likely that we actually get worse at hiring, even though we have better talent. So that means we need to redesign our interviews. We need to think about not just lifting and shifting our in-person process to online. Some things like, okay, what about a common interview practice would be to go to lunch with a candidate, just kind of, get the feel, get buy-in, get everyone excited. And how do you do a remote lunch? Like, how do you replace that thing that you just kind of been doing and you never really thought about? So those are things that they're challenging. It also feels more transactional. We all exist in this box. So I think it's incumbent upon us to do more work to create some of those, softer interactions, to also improve our data, because fraud is actually a little bit easier remote. So I'm sure everyone has heard these stories of one interviewer talks to someone else and they get to the next interviewer and it's a different person taking the interview. So things like using video on rather than just using phone are really important to catch the tiny percent of people that are going to cheat. But if we let those folks cheat, then it disadvantages all the vast, overwhelming majority of honest people that are just trying to get the next place for them. So these are just some of the challenges. It's when we change things, some things get harder, some things get easier, and we have to put in a little effort. That's things that get harder.
Agreed.
So Wes, you are working within an industry and companies where, the profile of the typical candidate is a white male that's introverted, and that's been statistically shown. So if I'm an owner or leader and as a company and I want to attract a diverse pool of candidates, what is Woven doing, and what are your ideas around attracting that diverse pool?
Yeah, this is so important. An extroverted engineer is one who stares at your shoes, right? Diversity engineering is hard. There is no magic bullet here, but it's important, and it's a thing that you can impact if you put in effort. So some of the things that we've seen our customers and people talk to be successful, I think the first step is you need to be in front of the right people. So if you're not on the right job boards, if you're just relying on your applicant tracking system's auto post, you're going to get mediocre to poor results at best. You have to get out there. You need to find job boards that are specifically targeted at groups that you're trying to increase your candidate pool on. If you're doing direct sourcing, I think taking diversity into account, like all of our networks, all of our job boards, they all have different biases, some overlapping. So I think it's a reasonable thing to do to try to counter some of that bias with your action. So that's one thing that really works. So if you're just posting on your ATS, you're going to have a bad time. The next thing is, okay, now I'm in front of people. Is my message going to resonate? And here, I think a mistake I see, a common mistake I see, is trying to create a one-size-fits-all job ad. You want to be the lowest common denominator, resonate with everyone. You're going to resonate with nobody. So a tactic I see folks having a lot of success with is creating different versions of a job ad. So for an engineer, this might mean we make one job ad that's very mission focused. It's like, what is our benefit to the world? Another job ad might be more slanted towards hard technical problems. So those are just a couple of different lenses you can take. Think of what's special about your team, your mission, your company, your problems, and build a job ad that's shorter and targeted at that, and post both of them, post 3 of them. That's the thing, that's a technique we see really juicing the diversity of candidate pool. We also generally, in software engineering, if you can work with your hiring manager to think like, what is really the minimum experience we need? Like, we need a capability. We need someone hitting the ground running. We don't need years of experience, because of the more you're able to define the capabilities that you need from an engineer, the more you're going to be able to find an exceptional earlier career engineer, and that candidate pool is much more diverse. If you're hiring engineers with 10 years of experience, that candidate pool is less diverse. The pipeline is different. So making those changes can have a big impact. And the next thing is, who are you excluding on purpose? So who are you, when you add requirements, kind of a well-known psychological fact is if you add, there are people across groups differ in certain personality traits. One of them is conscientiousness. That differs particularly between women and men. Women are much less likely to apply to a job that has lots of requirements because they will self-select out if they don't meet all the requirements. That's not the case with men. And this is like on average, these are overlapping distributions. But on average, you're going to shift your candidate pool more male if you have lots of requirements. And you might just be like not thinking a lot of those requirements. And you and I both know that those aren't actual requirements, but really paring that down to the 3 or 4 things that matter most. And then the next thing, and when you're paring down requirements, that means you really need, if you're not just leaning on years of experience, you really need a way to see if someone has the capabilities you need so they can hit the ground running, be successful. So this is when a good interview loop comes in. At Woven, we do capability-based assessments. So you are writing an email and responding to it to solve a technical problem. You are troubleshooting a system that looks like the type of system you're going to do. You can build these. Engineering teams all over the place will build them as take-home exercises. Having one of those that you're confident in allows you to lower that like years of experience bar and increase the diversity of your candidate pool while also being confident in your hires. We call these folks hidden gems, folks that are below what you might have wanted to see on a resume, but they can really do the job. And finding someone like that earlier in their career that's on a really steep learning trajectory could absolutely change your team. Both from a diversity standpoint, from a skill set perspective, from a like, it's just really fun to work with people who are just like kicking butt and learning fast and passionate about what they do. And having a more capabilities-based interview loop gives you the ability to hire those type of people. And it just feels really good to give somebody a chance who deserved it and then takes it and does great things.
Well said. Thanks.
Absolutely. I appreciate hearing all of that from you, Wes. So if we're thinking about this, are there other things that actually separate companies that are making these hires really well from the companies that are struggling from your perspective?
Yeah, this is tough because I understand recruiters and talent acquisition folks are under a lot of pressure. Sometimes they don't have control over the things they would like. But if I wanted to just paint in broad strokes, so the more corporate the job ad, the application process, the first touch as the candidate looks, versus the more we'll call it startup-y, but more like mission-oriented, personal. You're going to have a better time over here on this end of the spectrum. If you are just posting on the approved corporate job boards with the long job requirements that include how much you can lift as a software engineer, and that's like a prominent feature, you're gonna do worse at recruiting top talent, folks that are really going to move the needle for your team. So I know we can't always control all of those things, but where we can, push to making a job ad more human, using human language in our follow-ups and communication. So this is, sometimes we have a tendency to want to dress up our language and make it sound more authoritative and corporate. And in reality, that's not a thing that resonates, particularly with software engineers. If that really is your culture and you're not going to change that, and that's a deal breaker, I think that you got to be authentic to your team. But if you really are, you can let that humanness like resonate out in all of your communications. Candidates see it and they feel it, and it's different. And you have better conversion rates through your funnel. You have more applications. So letting what's different about you shine, especially about the mission and the people, that really makes a difference.
Great point. I don't think that kind of language ever resonates really with anyone.
I am skeptical that it does, but sometimes we have constraints.
Agreed.
What do both of you, the conversations in sales, when you have an owner right now that is, or a leader that's like thinking about cutting costs, and they perceive kind of what each of you do as like an extra thing, and it's like I'm going to do this myself and figure it out because I have to cut costs. So like how do you respond to that like objection or question when that comes up in a sales conversation right now?
Okay, I'll take that one first. What we do, if you think about it, I mean, it's kind of in that same category as what you mentioned, Daniel. We actually can bring a huge amount of value and help a client to lower costs, hard and soft costs. So for one, we are kind of all of that HR that's not payroll, that's not benefits, but you're really thinking about having a fractional head of HR who can make decisions for you, who can execute on things and help you solve big problems, in addition to managing relationships with folks and vendors like yourself, helping them to make decisions about implementing something like the software that Wes provides, not because I make money off of it or I sell it, but because I can let them know that's actually a wise investment for their company, or let them know that they are getting a really good value working with a PEO like Full Stack when it's time for them to transition to a larger benefits offering. Those are the kinds of things that we can help them to guide them through, because we're not tied to anyone else. We work for them. And they can hire a fractional head of talent, like an outsourced CFO, for example, same type of concept, but it doesn't cost as much as it does to hire someone in-house. So they still get our time, our attention, our focus, and we are held accountable to the same types of metrics that an internal employee would be, but we're less expensive. And so we're just as focused, just as accountable, but they don't have to pay us benefits, they don't have to pay us sick leave or vacation time, and they get the benefits of our experience. Everyone on our team has a minimum of 15 years experience in what they do, some all the way up to 30. And so we've been there, we've done it, and we can provide them the advice as well as an expertise, as well as an extra set of hands, and help them cut costs.
A fractional model can make a lot of sense when you're not quite ready for being all grown up and having your own full-time person, but you need help. On our side, we're only there are customers, there are prospects that are stopping hiring. They are in protection mode. They've lost 90% of the revenue. There are folks that are just not going to be hiring, and we've got nothing for them. We just can help them, give them advice, moral support, but that's all we can do. So if you're in that boat, we've had customers pause contracts, stop contracts, because instead of hiring, they're going to hire 20 engineers, and now they have no revenue and they're considering layoffs. We're not a good use of funds for that situation. For other folks, if they're hiring, they're doing it because they need more throughput on engineering. They're going to spend money to build more stuff to help the business. In that case, we are a way to save money, save engineering time, get more of what they want, which is more product build. They want less on headhunter fees. They want to spend less time on things that are not engineering team building product. So we're able to deliver more throughput in those cases.